Imagine you are somewhere deep in a vast Norwegian forest at a little clearing from where you can see the mountains in the distance, and from here you could just walk for hours and hours and you would still be surrounded by tall pines, crooked birches, and the only thing that you hear are the birds and a soft wind blowing through the treetops above you, and you can just start to sense the peace and the solitude of the forest around you. And that is actually where we are at the moment, and that is also where this podcast is going to be recorded. So welcome to the Forest Talks. My name is Lena, and we are currently in the fairy forest, how I like to call it. It is the forest behind our barn at the little farm where I live here in Norway, and I had this rather spontaneous idea that I would just really love to take you here to this magical place in the forest where I really like to come, where I find inspiration and peace. I would just really love to create this space for all of us where we can escape our daily lives and let us be inspired a bit by nature and this forest. And I would love this to be a space where we can all feel that we can just be ourselves, where we can skip the small talk and just talk about all of the things that really matter to us, that matter in life. So I want to talk about how is it possible that we can create ourselves a life that feels really true to ourselves, that feels true to our hearts, about following our passions and the fears and the hardships that can also come with that. I want to talk about nature, about how we can reconnect with ourselves and with the world around us again, and all of these different things that I just personally find so inspiring. And of course, I hope that listening to this podcast will leave you feeling a bit more inspired as well, or at peace, or feeling connected. Maybe that would be my goal. But yeah, that is what the idea is behind this podcast, and I am very excited to start this new journey, and I hope that it's going to be magical. Welcome to the forest, everyone. This is now the first episode of this podcast, and yeah, I have to say I am a little bit nervous and very, very excited. It's so nice to be able to take you here to this very magical spot. I have also put on my forest sweater, as you can see, to celebrate this day. It is the middle of July, but yeah, I guess that is also one of the best things to live in Norway, that you can just wear woolen sweaters the whole year round. I just love this. So I thought in this first episode I would just reintroduce myself a little bit. I guess most of you probably know me from my YouTube channel, and if you watch my videos then you know a lot about me and my journey already, but I feel like it's a good start into this journey, just so you know who is talking to you here, and maybe there are also things that you didn't know yet. And yeah, so let's just begin with that. So my name is Lena Henningsen. I am turning 30 years old this year. And yeah, what can you say? I am definitely a seeker in life. I am deeply fascinated with life and everything that comes to it. And I want to really experience it to the fullest. I am definitely also a nature lover. I am a Nordic soul. I feel deeply at home in the Nordic countries where it's cold, where it's wild, where nature still makes the rules, as at the moment, because right now there are coming a lot of mosquitoes, like these really, really tiny ones. I hope that it will be all right. And yeah, throughout my life, I have also decided to move here. I live in Norway deep in the forest. My partner, Joachim, and I have bought ourselves a little farm 2 years ago. And here I live with my 2 horses and my 2 dogs. And we are both creative people. We are very obsessed with our creative work. And I have been mostly focusing on working on the farm these last years, and yeah, getting the horses here. Horses always have been a very important part of my life, and now this dream of mine has come true. And yeah, but I also really wanted to tell you a little bit about my journey and how all that even happened. Let's maybe start from the very beginning. I was born in Lüneburg. It's a very cute and very romantic old German town. It is like so beautiful. You should definitely visit it if you're there at some point. And yeah, I was definitely a very creative child, I guess you could say. I spent a lot of my time alone in my room, just drawing and painting and reading and writing. And I always wanted to become an author, or yeah, I always just wanted to do something creative. And my biggest role model is a woman. She is called Cornelia Funke. Maybe some of you know her. She is writing the most beautiful stories, and she shaped like my whole childhood. And I always wanted to write like her, and I admire her until today. And I also always have been deeply obsessed with animals. One of the biggest highlights in my childhood was when we got a new neighbor and she had a dog. A little Labrador, beige Labrador mix called Lily, and I adopted her immediately. I gathered all of my courage and rang at the door and asked if I could just be around that dog and pet her. And yeah, eventually I was also allowed to take her on walks. And yeah, that was just the beginning of a big love story. I also always have been a horse girl. I went to riding school every week, and that always has been the highlight of the week. And I begged my parents for a horse, but there was no way. But yeah, I also really loved learning new things. And yeah, I was very good in school, in elementary school, I think that's how you call it. I was just like a bit of an overachiever. I really loved going to school. And in Germany, it is like that you go into elementary school for 4 years, and then you already go into high school, or the Gymnasium, how you call it in German. And that is kind of where things went a bit downwards for me. I always find it really hard to explain why I started to struggle in school that much, because I guess school is for many people not that great and they don't really like it, but okay, then you just do it and push through. But for me, it was just killing my spark, and it really killed my lust to learn. I also had very bad luck with teachers. I have such horrible stories about my school time, and also just being in this room with these 30 other teenagers. I also really don't know who thought that it would be a good idea to put 30 teenagers together in a room for the whole time, for the whole day. And yeah, just being there the whole time, this noise, this crowd. Now, afterwards, I know that this whole system was just the worst that could happen to a person like me. I mean, I'm of course very aware that education, or having access to education, is a huge privilege in this world. But of course, that doesn't mean that our school system, how it is today, is good the way it is. There are definitely so many things that I deeply believe go so much against our human nature, and it is just so outdated and not in this time anymore. I might do a whole episode about that eventually, but to make it short, I really struggled in school. So I became very angry and resentful, but not on the outside. I kept that very much to myself, but it turned inwards, and I was just hating it. Like, I was just sitting there hating the teacher, hating the school, and it made me quite hard. So I definitely wasn't like the good girl who just wants to do everything right. I hated it. I had so much hatred towards all of this, that I had to go there, that I had to do this, that I had to be there. And yeah, no one really cared. The teacher couldn't care less. And my parents were very occupied with themselves at the moment, until it got so worse that they decided that, or we decided together, that I would need to change the school, because maybe it's just this school that is the problem. But surprise, surprise, that wasn't the case. Even though I started changing schools, that didn't make anything better. It even made it a little bit worse, because then I just started to be the new girl the whole time. And a lot of things came together at that time. My parents separated, which was a relief, because there was a lot of tension. And I moved to Hamburg together with my mom. And at first, I was in this teenage phase, and I thought it was cool, to move to a big city now and to get out of this small town. But that wasn't true. Everything that I had left that felt like me, or that brought me joy, disappeared more and more out of my life. And then, like I said, a lot of things came together, a lot of shitty things happened, and this whole time just feels a little bit like a blur to me, I have to say. And it was pretty dark, and it was also when I really started to be alone, and I couldn't find connection anywhere. And I guess it's a strange phase anyways when you are a teenager. But for me, it was just I was so confused, because I don't know if it's also because there are more expectations towards adults and you just give kids much more space to just be who they are. And I suddenly found myself in this very weird place of really wanting to fit in and to just be a cool teenager, to be funny and to go to parties. And I really wanted that. I just couldn't do it. It felt so awkward and so wrong, and I just wouldn't enjoy it. And I couldn't even pretend like I was enjoying it. And that is, I guess, my biggest blessing and my biggest curse in my life, because I guess I also always kind of stayed true to myself, because it just didn't work. Someone recently asked me if I would describe myself as a people pleaser. And I have to say no, because for a very long time I have been in this very strange place where I really wanted to be a people pleaser. I tried very hard, but I just couldn't do it. I don't know. There weren't very many people in my life who were actually pleased with me. Also at parties or something, I would just be so tense, and I couldn't let myself be free or actually enjoy that. And also in conversations, I never could pretend like I would enjoy a boring conversation. I guess in some ways I managed that, but it would make me feel so horrible afterwards. And I was just in this gap of really wanting connection and wanting to fit in. And at the same time, it just wouldn't work. And as I said, in some ways, it has been a curse and a blessing at the same time, because that really forced me to look for another way, and to also realize that maybe I need to go my own way, and maybe I have to try something else. I get compliments very often for my courage to follow my own path and stuff like that, but it was really born out of desperation, because at some point I just realized that I can't be in this world like this. I have to find a different way, and I gathered all my strength and went out searching. And that was also when I then came to Norway for the first time. I must have been 16, maybe. I discovered Tina through a friend. We both worked with horses the same way, or we like followed the same kind of philosophy. And my friend was going there in summer, and I basically just asked if I can come because I love horses, I love nature, why not? It didn't felt like anything big, I have to say. I just planned it in my summer holidays for 2 weeks. I go to Norway and yeah, like I said, it wasn't really a big thing. I didn't felt like anything before that, or I also never had like a relation to Norway or Scandinavia really. I mean, northern Germany is quite Scandinavian in some ways, but I never really thought about it. But that should definitely change because already when I stepped out of the plane in Oslo and I just felt like this cold wind in my face, and something also about the Norwegian language that just made me feel at home immediately. And it was just this really deep sensation that I could feel. And I was 16. This was the first time I ever have been out of Germany on my own. And this journey to Dream Valley has just been the most exciting thing. You drive out with a train out of the city, and then you have to switch trains, and the train is just like this really small thing where at that point you also have to go to the, oh my, how's that called in English? The guy who checks the ticket in the train. You have to go to him and say, I have to get out at this station because otherwise the train won't stop there, because sometimes no one else is getting out at that station. So yeah, I was very, very worried that the train would just go through. It didn't. Luckily, I got out at my station, and that already felt like the middle of nowhere. No one else was there except a car and a driver who was there to pick me up and drive me to Dream Valley. You can imagine maybe that as a 16-year-old girl, that does feel a little bit scary to just hop into a car with a strange man in the middle of nowhere. But I just did it. I just felt like, okay, fuck it. If I'm getting murdered now, at least I'm in a good place. It was a very nice guy. He wasn't scary at all. But yeah, he started driving and we drove through this most majestic nature. There were mountains and rivers and forests, and I just felt like the biggest adventurer, and I was so fascinated by that. And yeah, I arrived in Dream Valley. It was so beautiful. Tina lived there in an old wooden house in a big valley. That is also where the name Dream Valley comes from. With horses all around, with cats, her art, and it was a super chaotic time. I was there for 2 weeks and Tina was just moving. She bought her own farm at that time and I happened to be there exactly then. So it was super chaotic. We were busy just cleaning out the new place. It was without electricity, without water, outdoor toilet. And yeah, it was so exciting. We moved over the mountains, taking the horses. I am so grateful that I got to be there at this. It was really like the beginning of a new chapter, both for Tina, but also for me, because this whole lifestyle, I was so intrigued by it. And I mean, I was a city girl at that time, not in my heart, not ever, but I at least behaved like that. And just being so close to nature, not having electricity, not having running water, that was something that was so out of my world. I have never even thought about where my water comes from before. It sounds so ridiculous now, but I was so estranged from nature and my own nature as well. And yeah, Tina and Dream Valley definitely lit up that spark again. And I knew that this is what I want. This is what I want more of. And of course, there followed a time of transition. It wasn't like I came to Norway once and everything changed immediately. No, I returned to Hamburg. I returned to my misery, but there was definitely like this spark in me again. And it was also a period of my life where, I don't know, I have somehow made this decision of fuck it. I'm doing my own thing now. Fuck you all. Like, I am not going to care anymore. I definitely had this commitment and I studied at that time. And while studying, I started to build up my own business. I think I must have been 18 or 19 at that point. And I was very committed. And I guess also because of this hardness and like this I don't care anymore attitude, that is also what really made me push past my fear. And I just did everything I could to make it work, and it worked. I started to do design jobs. I started to do websites and logos and flyers and photo jobs for people. And it never went like through the roof, but it always has been enough for me to make a living. And eventually I then also moved out from my mom. The first thing, of course, that I did after I moved out was to get myself a dog. Ivy moved in. So that was my life at that time. I studied, I worked very, very hard, and I came to Norway as often as I could. And I cried every time I had to leave again. And after I finished my studies, I studied for 2 years, I decided to go to Norway without an end date. I didn't really have a plan or something, so I took Ivy. We went on the ferry, made the journey to Dream Valley again, and only after one night I knew I wouldn't go back anymore. It was a decision that was so clear. I didn't need to think about that. I just knew that I don't want to go back to Hamburg anymore. I want this. I want to be in nature. And it was possible because I had built this little business of mine, this freelance job that I did. And I just did it. I don't know. It didn't even felt like a big moment or something. I just knew it and I did it. A few months after that, I also went through all the legal procedures to immigrate because I wanted to also start working in Norway. I got a job offer at that time. And yeah, I just did all these things and somehow it worked. So suddenly I was a Norwegian resident and yeah, I left everything behind without even thinking about it because in the end, there wasn't much that was holding me back. So, yeah, there I was in Norway. And I guess sometimes in life you have these moments where you just feel like so in alignment. And it definitely felt like that to me at that point. But of course, just because you move to a beautiful place doesn't solve all your problems. And also in Dream Valley, not everything has just been going well. Tina had a lot of crises as well. And eventually I also knew that I couldn't be in Dream Valley as well forever. I need to do something else. So I decided to buy myself a van and go traveling a little bit. I didn't have any plans for afterwards. I just bought myself this old beige, a little bit ugly van and I built that out and I started traveling a bit in Norway. I didn't travel for very long. I also pretty soon realized that van life maybe isn't quite the right thing for me. I am a very homey person. I need my four walls and yeah, just like this safe space where I can retreat, and a van isn't quite that. You're just pretty much open in the world the whole time. And yeah, it was also the summer where Joachim and I got together. He basically just moved in with me in my van, and after a few weeks, we decided to rent the little red house that you maybe still know from my early videos. And that is where my YouTube journey began, and I think from then on, you can just watch the videos. For me, this was definitely the time where everything started to lit up a little bit, because I finally felt like I was just in the right place, and I finally also had time to reflect a little bit on my life and everything that happened, and go through these things and try to find answers, and also to heal myself, because through this life and through my experience in life, I did had to learn to love myself again, and to let go of this hardness as well. And also definitely the way that I was running my business, it has served me a lot at that time to just push through and work my ass off and to just fight so hard to make it work. But that isn't a lifestyle that you can pursue for very long without being burned out. So I had to recalibrate completely and find new ways to work as well, and to soften again, to allow myself to let go, to allow myself to be a sensitive human, to not try so hard anymore. And that has been the journey that I have been on for the last years. And yeah, now we are here on our farm, on my own place, my own little dream valley with my own horses. And I am so looking forward to talk so much more about all these topics, about how to find yourself, how to find your path. I just find that so fascinating, and I have studied so many people who I find inspiring, like how did they do it? How was their journey? And it's just so fascinating, because I can see so many similarities, and maybe you can find yourself in my story as well at some parts. And I guess in the end, we all just have to find our own way and figure it out somehow. But there are things that can also make the journey easier. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to talk so much more about this, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about my journey north. So yeah, I'm going to see and hear you very soon again. Bye bye.